All right, welcome to the Red Room podcast. This is two guys who want to talk about television for a little while. I'm Josh Minton.
I'm Scott Ryan.
And we both think that television is pretty important. We have a weekly TV night where we watch with our wives. Our wives are sisters. We were introduced through enforced marriage.
We started off, our first TV night program was Twin Peaks, which I had seen when it was originally on 20 years ago.
I never watched I never watched it. And
My wife had never watched it.
Scott was the wizard who knew all the secrets.
But I think Twin Peaks is probably the most rewatchable show because it's so layered, and hence the name of this podcast being the Red Room, very influential in Twin Peaks.
Definitely, yeah. I can't believe that it ever made it on television, to be honest with you. You look at that now with getting on TV, it would have been a good HBO
It
show.
would have definitely been on HBO. There's no way ABC would have ever done it. And actually, they've said that ABC only picked that show because they were in last place. And the president of ABC said, we have nothing to lose. And that's the only reason it's on.
Isn't that funny? How much great art comes out of We Have Nothing Left to Lose?
I think in a way that the only way you're going to do something new, because really that's how Seinfeld was, which is another groundbreaking show. Just the president of NBC liked it. And that's it. And he said, no, I like it. No, I don't get it, but I like it. Keep going. And I think they were almost canceled 2 or 3 times.
How much distance does a television show need to grow?
And I think that doesn't even exist anymore. The only show that I can think of right now that sort of has that is The Big Bang Theory.
Latitude, you mean?
To grow. CBS gave Big Bang Theory room to grow, and now it's probably, in the top 5 shows on TV or something? But when it first started, I didn't watch it the first year, did you?
I did watch it the first year, actually, but only because it was so geeky. It really just appealed to me. Star Trek jokes, I'm in. Klingon Bible, I'm in for that. Plus, it was this hit. It had cutting-edge astrophysicists throwing in jokes about World of Warcraft. But I think you're right. However, if it wouldn't have been Chuck Lorre's show, I don't think it would have been given that latitude because he already had 2.5 million. It was there, already successful. I don't think that they were at a point of nothing to lose.
That is true, but I think as far as a show anymore, like you take Lost, its premiere was in the top 10, and then it only fell ratings-wise.
People may lost people. That made people got lost in what the hell going on in the show.
But I think for the most part now, a show isn't given that first season where someone says, you know what, 4 out of those 22 episodes were great. That's good enough for another season.
So money driven now that I think that's one of the interesting things about going back to Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks was the network, their money decisions, their financial decisions really impacted the artistic direction of that show in some interesting ways that have left us as the audience kind of scratching our heads like, why do they do these things?
And David Lynch has said always that it was never his intention to solve the mystery. The network forced them to do it. The thing that's really interesting is what's going on right now with the show that I don't watch, but I've been reading about is The Killing, where they came out, they said, hey, we're going to do 13 episodes. We're going to tell you who did it in the 13th episode. They play the 13th episode. It had the cliffhanger. You don't find out who did it. And I have read article after article that people are pissed.
You think they did it because they wanted to be renewed?
I think they got picked up for the second season and then they didn't tell. One of my big philosophies in TV is I don't believe in the Dave and Maddie curse for moonlighting. I think that isn't true. I think you can solve a mystery, get a couple together, do the things that need to be done, and then give the character a new hurdle. But television executives don't believe that.
Yeah, that's a shame because you talk about the story arc. Usually the first season, like a love interest or something like that, solving a mystery, whatever. And I look at shows like Castle. Do you watch Castle? Great show. I love Nathan Fillion. Loved him in Firefly. I actually really enjoyed everything he's ever done. But I like Moonlighting quite a bit growing up. That was like one of the great 80s shows. So what they've been able to do is take that formula and basically rewrite it for the mid-2000s using a writer. Right up my alley. Gone 3 seasons now with this love interest, where they've got that conflict going on. They still haven't quite requited it yet, so they're stretching it out pretty far.
And if they got together, do you think that would ruin the show?
It could, but then you look at shows like Frasier, where Niles and Daphne were dragged out over 8 seasons. And in my opinion, it actually got better once they got together. It was just a brand new set of hurdles.
Bones is a show that we quit this year because they're not together. And it's been 7, 8 years of them almost getting together. And they actually told each other they love each other, but said, we can't get together. And no two grown-up it's just the world would tell each other, we love each other, but we're not going to pursue.
What was the reasoning behind it? Social duty?
They really gave no reason. It was almost like they were saying we're television characters and we can't get together even though we love each other. And from that episode on, I hated the show. It's off the DVR.
Yeah, it's bad. But you're exactly right. There's certain American myths that shows have to uphold, and one of them is love triumphs overall. That's the golden rule. So it sounds like that they went off of that. Pat.
A show you mentioned, Frasier, about when they got together. I think Friends is a great example because you had two main character couples, Jennifer Aniston and David Schwimmer, which they continuously did not get together. Ross and Matthew Perry. When they got together, it was so much better. And I liked Monica and Chandler way more than Ross and Rachel.
Yeah, Ross and Rachel were painful after a while. It was cool in the first season. That was the pitch. They came in and said, group of friends, one guy loves a girl, has been loved her for 20 years, and that's the whole season. And it was funny. But even when you watch that first season of Friends, it struggles compared to what they were able to do later.
My thing about Friends, which I love that show, but David Schwimmer's acting is so awful after the second season that I hated him. And I have a theory that the writers hated him. And they were like, I hate David Schwimmer so badly, let's do this to him. And if you watch later Friends and think about my theory, you'll see the writers also hated David Schwimmer. But his acting, if you look at the way he played Ross in season 1 versus every other season, not only do I hate him, but the writers did as well.
They love Joey, though. Television, what is it that attracts you to certain shows and not others?
I think the thing that TV does that's different than movies or even books is that you spend every week with them and you want to come back. Whether you hate the character or you love the character is irrelevant. It's that you want to come back. And to me, that's what draws to television, is spending time with, in reality, your friend. They're just TV friends.
It's a lot longer of a scale. We're watching The Sopranos. We just finished season 2 again. Scott's never seen it, so we've been throwing that into our television night mix. And when you look at The Godfather, which is gone, that's 12 hours. I consider all 3 to be the trilogy. I know you don't watch.
Well, I consider all 3 to be the trilogy. I just don't consider Godfather 3. Goodfellas.
We differ on many things, and Godfather 3 is one of them. I like Godfather 3. I think it's a good cap. But at any rate, 12 hours to tell that story, as opposed to The Sopranos, which had 66 hours to tell their story. You can do so many more things in 66 hours than you can in 12. And it's just as epic. You can just do more with television. And looking at it from a literary perspective, I believe you can actually do more with short stories than you can with a novel.
And I think that's an important part of television. For me, the show that I like, the episode that happened before it existed. And shows that I would say that I'm not interested in as much are when the show before it didn't exist. That, to me, is the point of television.
So, using that as a measure, when you look at shows like Star Trek, The Next Generation.
Oh, that's a great discussion, which I'm sure we'll have a podcast on Star Trek. But to give a preview of my theory, Rick Berman was the genius of Star Trek, The Next Generation, and what killed Star Trek, which is awesome.
The franchise?
Yeah. Because he came in and really shaped Gene Roddenberry's vision to something that worked in the late 80s, early 90s. But he truly believed that all pieces of the puzzle had to be put back together by the end of the episode. The only story that I can think of that was ever continued was Worf's discommendation. I hated Nemesis. It's an awful idea. You're going to kill Data, which is a great idea. But that whole movie should have been weird to the viewer. The whole time you should have been like, what's going on? That doesn't make sense. And at the last second, you should have discovered that what you watched was 3 seconds in an android's mind of dying. And you could have still told the same story, but there should have been little blips that didn't make sense to us. That's how Brandon Braga and the Battlestar guy, they always wrote together.
Ronald Moore.
Cause and Effect, which is the episode where the Enterprise blew up every 7 minutes. And it kept starting over. And it was the same way. They didn't spoon feed you when it blew up.
No, you're right.
You could have done a similar idea, but all through Data's eyes. Because the idea of an android dying and its character that we cared about for 16 years, and then I didn't even know he died.
There were quite a few episodes that were pretty trippy with time. The one where Picard lived his life with the piccolo flute. Great episode.
I really hate that episode. And it is always in the top 3. Any poll you ever see. Here's my thing about that episode. Picard lives an entire life in 42 minutes. But in his mind, it's been 75 years.
Yep.
And then he wakes up and they're like, hey, go ahead, command the Starship Enterprise. I'm sure you remember all the codes, right? It's more than 75 years for you. You remember who that incident that works down in engineering, right? Yeah, you're his boss too. It'd be a great episode if when it ended, he was fired because, dude, you worked in 75 years. It'd be a great episode if they fired Picard afterwards because he doesn't pay the code. I can hardly remember my password for everything I got to sign in at work, but Picard remembers everything. It's been 75 years since he's seen Manifest. So that episode really annoyed me.
Maybe their continuity director took the day off. So Scott and I differ on enough that there should be interesting conversations, but I think we come together on television's very important, obviously. It's still making a lot of money for a lot of people. I'm not super happy with the way things currently are right now with television. I'm waiting for the day that I can just subscribe to television shows and pay for those shows individually.
I really want to cancel cable. I really want to tell Time Warner to suck it for charging me $120 for what I can dial up on my computer for free. So
the HBO Go, I have that. I think it's probably the best thing I've ever seen. So I can pull up any episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm and watch them all back to back, no matter where I am. I'm on a wireless network. It doesn't even hit my data plan.
So give me some shows that you see us discussing to give ours a bit of an idea of some of the shows you imagine bringing up.
All in the Family, Arrested Development, Northern Exposure, 6 Feet Under, any of the HBO shows, Deadwood, Sopranos, Carnival, True Blood, Star Treks, any of them. Frasier, Seinfeld, Curb Your Enthusiasm.
For me, my all-time favorite TV person is David E. Kelly. He's been a big inspiration to me with Picket Fences, Boston Legal, Practice, Ally McBeal, L.A. Law, Doogie. So David E. Kelly is a big one for me. Moonlighting was probably the first and most influential on me as a writer.
What do you think that?
My first movie I ever made was an episode of Moonlighting. I played David Addison. My high school girlfriend was some of my friends. We did 2 episodes of Moonlighting. The Moonlighting, Star Trek, definitely, Twin Peaks, Battlestar Galactica, and Sopranos. We're watching that now, so I'm sure we'll be discussing. I have plenty to say on that. That'll be a podcast. West Wing. I'm a big Buffy Angel fan. So next podcast is going to be about Twin Peaks. We're going to watch Firewalk with Me,
which I still haven't seen yet.
So that we're finishing up our Twin Peaks time, and we're going to discuss Twin Peaks, the series, the movie.
That we can't make it to the Twin Peaks reunion
with Flora Palmer.
It's just such a hell of a trek.
We're on the East Coast and they're way on the west.
That's a long way away.
To wrap up, what would you say is the point of television?
My first initial response is entertainment. To primarily be entertained is the first. There's another subversive purpose, I think, also to enforce certain myths, to break other myths apart. I think TV was instrumental in breaking apart racism. Ultimately has a long-term impact. What about you?
You're wrong. The correct answer is the point of television is to sell soap.
And here it's exactly right. So that's not why I watch it. That was the point of radio. That is the point of the advertising-based model, which is why I look forward to going to a subscription-based model. People pay for the entertainment that they want, And in the future, they will have direct impact on the artistic creation that's coming out, because television is very much a plural form of entertainment. And I think
Right.
that it's about time that some of us did have some input in what's going on. The writers and the producers have the ultimate say, but they should at least start to listen to the feedback. You know what I mean? 'Cause when a show goes wrong, it goes real, real wrong. That's not a good thing.
Definitely. Hey, if you have any feedback for us, we have an email. You can tell us that we're jackasses or whatever you
Yeah.
want.
We're open to all kinds of feedback. So thanks, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.